Okay, everyone, thank you so much for coming out. I apologize for the few-minute late start, but you know, that's the way it is. It's actually really good because if we started right on time, we'd only about have half the people here, so both online and in person. My name is Daniel Tuutau. I am the chair of the Poplar Grove Community Council. We're so glad you're able to make it out to our meeting today. Just by way of quick business, those online and those in person, we were having kind of a hybrid event. Because of that, these mics here at the front of the room are what everyone online hears. So if you have a comment or a question, we'd love if like there's a Q&A portion, we'll kind of have one mic sort of facing the other direction. You can come up and ask that near a mic, because if not, everyone online is going to hear. Yeah, that was nothing. So, okay. So awesome. We want to just quickly introduce some of the other members of the council that we have here. We have Esther Stoll, who is the vice chair, and Marissa, who is the secretary. And we also have Karen here in the audience, who is our treasurer. The other members of the board that are present here, we have Jason Seaton. We have Rick, who just walked in. He's one of the newer members. And Michael is right here in the front. I'm looking right, you're right behind the mic, Sam. Mike is behind the mic. And then Danny's hiding in the back over there. Dan Potts in the back as well. Yeah, you need to stand up when you're sitting down. Awesome. So we're going to roll through this meeting a little bit. We have some community council updates from different community groups first. Then we're going to go into Poplar Grove updates from the council and events that we have going on. And then we have a few public presentations that are going to go on. So we'll just sort of roll down the list. Some people are going to be virtual, online, they'll be speaking that way, and some people will be in present. Again, if you are here in person, please try to come up here so that the online folks that are existing through that camera over there will be able to see who's talking as well. All right, so to start off, do we have anyone from the fire department here? Online?
No.
All right, the police report. Do we have?
He's in the back.
Also hiding in the back.
Do you want to just like in front of that table?
All right. Okay, I gotta pull the computer up today because my phone didn't work. Any questions, concerns that you're seeing in the neighborhood? I know there are some.
There's always concerns
I know.
questions, but would like to hear your report.
So my report is just gonna be, we saw that there was a homicide just down the street today at Right Circle. So that was in Poplar Grove. Beware of the questions that should be coming from. You're not very far from that house, actually.
I'm not far from Right Circle.
Okay, so
I have questions now that you've brought that up, but go ahead.
yeah, so that's just beware that you'll probably get a lot of questions from that. And we don't have a whole lot of details yet. As soon as they give them to me, I can give the details out. You'll probably learn more from KSL than you will from me, unfortunately. And so we'll just go through some numbers real quick. Let me get, uh-oh, my numbers just disappeared. Well, that's not cool. Okay, so let me pull up the Salt Lake City. If you go to Salt Lake City Police Department website, slcpd.com, you can find all these numbers as far as the comp stat report. And I'm just going to pull them up because it disappeared on me. And we are right now in week 16 of 2023. And I'm going to go through kind of both numbers since District 1 and District 2, since Poplar Grove covers both Districts 1 and District 2. In the last year to date, we've had the one homicide, and we've had a total of 41 violent crimes in District 1. So that's down actually 4% from last year to this date, so which is a good sign. And then in District 2, we have had 77 violent crimes in 2023 compared to 91 last year. So that's down also 15.4%. So the numbers are looking good. Here's the disclaimer though. It's starting to warm up. The cold and the snow kind of has effect on crime. So yeah, that's where our numbers at. You've probably seen a lot of cleanups along the Jordan River. The Jordan River was a concern with the high water and the people living underneath the camps. So there was a lot of activity out there trying to get in touch with those folks. So you'll continue to see that. There was a cleanup up on what?
Saturday?
Was there a cleanup on Saturday?
The Earth Day.
Oh, this is just our normal daily cleanups. Yes. Yeah. So the cleanup that happened today was up near Day Riverside Library. Is that 1000 North? No, that's not Day Riverside. Which one's that? 1000 North and Redwood Road. Yeah, that is Day Riverside. So that's where the cleanup was today. And then it'll just continue every day from now until whenever. So that's really all the numbers I have. I want any other questions.
Let the audience go first before I bombard you. Jason.
I did hear the news about the shooting today. It was a brother and sister, both teenagers. Brother shot his sister. She is deceased.
So that's more information than I even have. So
Is that the same household that had a shooting a couple of months ago?
so that is one of our popular houses, unfortunately, but I think it's different. We have different people that come in and out of that house all the time. So it could
It's
be
the whole circle. There's a constant rotation. So at what point does the city
so we have
talk to the owner of that place?
have
Because
been
he's
in contact,
notorious for
yeah.
renting to,
it
trouble
has come up for
individuals.
nuisance properties for the landlord, good landlord program. I don't know where the city's at, and I don't think you see Josh or anyone from the city here. So that we can ask Josh that, but it has come up in the past for a good landlord issue with the property owner. Because it's got a lot of history. Well, that wasn't bombarded.
well, if we have more questions in
Yeah, I'll be
terms of the, because I think at this point it's really about the landlord and his choices that's really infiltrating that circle. So if we have more concerns, and we talk to the city to
That would be the best.
bring that up with the,
Unless it's a course of crime. You're seeing something that happens, it's criminal, and then contact me or contact. But the city work together. Any other questions? Easier. Okay, I'll be here. So if there's any questions, yell at me.
thank you.
Great. Do we have any of our House representatives or state legislators? City council?
Hello.
Hey, your floor is yours.
Hi. So a quick update from me. Budget session is about to start, and so the administration is going to start presenting each individual department's budget. It's going to take a little while to go through all that, but this is the perfect time to bring about things that we can change in the city departments and how to fund the city and its services. So please reach out and with my contact information. I will put it on the chat, but you can also text me or call me, and we can discuss the budget or any other things that is in your mind related to the city. So thank you. That will be my update.
Great. Any particular questions from the gallery? Larry, you want to come on close to a microphone?
No, Larry.
He can't hear you. If you
I
just
gotta read. I wanted to compliment Alejandro about last couple weeks ago. I was at the city council meeting and I brought up some stuff. It was a little rough. I got to write it down because I'm going to forget. I'm bad at this stuff. And the truth is, in fairness to me, I'm a construction worker. That's how we talk. But Alejandro reached out to me. We sat down and we talked. And thank you for that, Alejandro. And I'm really glad that you're my representative. And like I say, even though, like I say, my comments may seem rough, the truth is I'm old. I'm a construction worker. That's kind of how we used to do it. But Alejandro, when you reached out to me, you have moxie. Moxie is like, that's a compliment. So no, I respect that in you. And like I say, I'm glad you're my representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Any other questions or concerns?
This is on a pretty light note. I've heard a lot about this MLB thing. The interesting thing to me is that everyone wants to keep the smokestacks. So
I think that's kind of an odd choice. I would much prefer, if we're going to be sitting in a stadium facing the mountains, to just see the mountains. And so if there's any voting on whether those come or go, I would prefer them go away. And for them to call it a power place, I think that's kind of funny because it used to be a big brewery. So they should maybe run with that. I was just joking around, but the smokestacks or the steam stacks, whatever they are out there, I think they could probably go away.
That's it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, thanks, Alejandro. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, someone else online. I think we have Josh, who's our mayor liaison. The floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. So my name's Josh Raboyo. I'm a community liaison in the mayor's office. And I am going to be the liaison in the mayor's office for District 2. Ava Lopez has taken an opportunity outside of the city, or outside of the city government, that is. And so is not with our office anymore. So just first of all, and you know, I've been liaison here before, so I'm glad to be back, and as it is with Poplar Grove, and hoping I can be there next month in person. I wanted to address Esther's question on civil enforcement and issues with problematic properties. I have not been kept up to date at this point. Just stepping again into District 2 role on which properties we're discussing. But Esther, please reach out to me, or anyone reach out to me if you have a question on a specific property and want to know what the city is doing to address issues with property owners. I can get in contact with our civil enforcement division. Civil enforcement works with us, works with PD and with the attorney's office in the city to address issues that come up, persistent issues that come up in properties, to try to exert as much force as possible and as is allowed under our state property owners' rights laws, which does limit the city in some ways as to what can be done. But we try to exert as much force as we can under the law to bring property owners into compliance when there are persistent issues in the community. So please just reach out to me. I'm going to put my contact info in the chat, and then you can find my contact info also on the mayor's website under the community outreach tab. So just want to address that. And then other things, I just want to thank everyone on behalf of our office in public lands that showed up to the river cleanup on Saturday. Over 1,000 volunteers, and just thanks to everyone who participated in that. It was a great effort, and earlier this month too, on the sandbagging efforts that happened at Rosewood Park and at Sugar House Park. If any of you participated in those, another huge effort that was very successful thanks to the community who volunteered. And tomorrow, Public Lands will be having an event at Cottonwood Park for Arbor Day. It's Arbor Day Tree Festival. So our Public Lands and Urban Forestry Division and the mayor will be there and talking about trees. And there'll be some activities there, tree watering demonstrations, opportunities to participate in planting new trees, food trucks, also. And that's tomorrow at Cottonwood Park at 4 o'clock to 6. So show up to that if you are able to. And I think aside from that, I think that's all I had to update. And then, as council member mentioned, the budget process coming up. The mayor will be presenting the citywide budget on the city council meeting on May 2nd, next Tuesday. So tune in for that. The only caveat there is that public utilities and libraries do their budgets. Those departments do their budgets separately. But the mayor will be presenting that budget on May 2nd. And I'm happy to take any questions.
There's a question, Danny? Yeah, there's a question. Someone's coming up. Want to go stand in front of that table?
So we just found out that for another time, our CIP grant for the Fife Wetland Preserve had been denied. And, you know, the problem is that, you know, I'm pretty familiar as our West Side naturalist, I guess you could say. I'm pretty sure that that nature lovers up and down the corridor don't hold Salt Lake City in the highest regard. And so it's really wanting to have a Fife Wetland Preserve that shows some semblance of nature. And we haven't been able to attain that. The thing was originally designed not as a nature preserve, as it's so named, inappropriately named, but also it was designed as a park, as a human park. Well, wildlife is not interested in a human park. They want nature. We had about 350 plants and trees introduced in there. A nonprofit organization I represent spurred that effort. And now we just need a few more things done. So we wanted to set up a meeting. It came from Turner Benton to have a meeting with the mayor because the Fife Preserve is split in half by the 9 line, and Poplar Grove is on one side and Glendale is on the other. So we just have a three-way meeting or so and talk about what might be possible in the future. We don't want to lose the investments we made last year in that preserve. Okay, thanks.
Yes, thanks for the comment, Dan. Just reach out to me, please. I'd like to talk more about this and see where that stands and how we can work with our office and with public lands and the council and see at the CIP process on that.
Sure. All right, one more comment.
I've got a comment on the usage of public lands, the city lands, and it has to do with Indiana Avenue. And, you know, there's a solar farm north of that. I'd like to see that solar farm expanded. And over where the other side village is being proposed, I think it'd be a much better, you know, for our community to have the solar farm expanded. And, you know, I wrote a letter to the mayor about this. And at the end of the letter, I said, a marketed village artistically portrayed with large trees is a feel-good fantasy fueled bad idea. A better idea is the parcel of land designated for the OSV being used in expansion of the solar farm at the north end of the acreage. And I'd like to encourage everybody here, because they said, hey, I got a card in the mail saying if you have, you know, something you're concerned with and how money is spent, I would suggest that we say, hey, the money should be spent for a solar farm. And hey, I didn't get it, and either Esther or we never got NPR interviews. This has been marketed, and it is a fantasy fueled idea that this guy is putting forth. And we haven't had a voice through NPR. I mean, he's talking about it. The fellow that's been promoting this, you know, the way he talks, you know, when you come to Salt Lake City, the first thing you want to see is Temple Square. And the second thing you want to see is the other side village, which we financed at great expense. And he can take, you know, all sorts of, get bouquets for, you know, having done it. And I think the mayor has been sold and she's been marketed to, and, you know, it's like the whole pot. And another thing I said in my letter, hey, I live just close to Indiana Avenue. Nobody in my neighborhood was polled by the people, 60% in favor. And hey, it's all marketed too. I mean, the realities, Esther and I've spoken up about this for a long time, and we haven't been heard. And to me, this is an important issue. Is it going to be a magnet to have 600 people who are drug addicted and mentally ill? You know, one of my criticisms of our senator here, she's for psilocybin and marijuana when we need mental health facilities here in the state. She should be up there in the legislature campaigning for more comprehensive mental health care for people. And, there's a shortage. And I talked to Alejandro, and Alejandro told me it's a done deal. It's going to happen. And he said, you got to talk to the mayor. She's the only one that can stop this. And I would encourage her to get out there, promote the solar farm and that deal. And hey, she could take bouquets for going, a green pro energy, green energy and stuff like that. But, and in my letter, I said, hey, is this a great idea? It's next, and they're talking about it. It goes pictures with trees and everything like that. They're 30-foot high trees. And it's just a fantasy. We're going to have to pay for this guy's fantasy fueled dreams? The guy who's, and people who have bought into it. And, and the only hope that I have, perhaps, other than people, in great numbers say, hey, go in there and put, just have, public outcry saying, we want a solar farm there. It's a better idea. And anyway.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Could I just add to what he just talked about? First of all, thank you for sharing that. We did fight for a whole year to have the city reconsider placing the other side village over there. And like you said, our neighborhood was not polled. Based on what I was not polled. I live right on Indiana, and I was not polled. My neighbors were not polled. So,
and no one in my neighborhood was.
Yes. And according to Alejandro, well, a lot of the people that he spoke with were in favor of it. But I think it's very interesting that we were not in favor of it. This community council were not in favor of it, but yet our cries and our cries were just ignored. And it is very disappointing because as a mother raising children in this neighborhood, it was very hard for me to see that go in there. My kids went to Wallace Stegner Academy and they no longer go to that school because I just don't feel like this city is really looking out for my children. They're looking out for the adults, and that's okay. But if we don't instill the good qualities in these children now, we're just training them to go into the same field that's going to be service for. And I don't think that's a good approach.
Cool.
They have finalized everything. They broke ground in March.
Yeah.
Nobody on this community council was invited to that. So I don't know how they are in a community, building in a community that's supporting them, but yet they don't reach out to connect with us. And I understand that I personally oppose them, but not every member in our community council does. And that's fine. But still, if you're working in a community, you should be able to go in that community and say, hey, we're coming here. I know you don't like us, but we're here, we're breaking ground. Can you show up at this thing? And give us the choice to say no. I also mentioned to Alejandro that what he and Victoria should have done was vote no. But his rhetoric was always that it's a done deal. It's a done deal, but how many members are on the city council? There's 7 of them, right? Am I counting that properly? So if 2 of them who are representing the West Side said no, went through and got us the great deal that they did in the first place. If they still, and they could have just still said no. Because for me, I was more interested in them standing up for the West Side and letting everyone else that's going to be coming to the West Side, because everything is moving to the West Side, to let them know that we will fight for what we know is best for our residents, our people that live here. And they did not do that. They voted yes to have that over here as well.
I agree. I've been to plenty of community.
Could you come talk to her, please?
No, just that I've been to plenty of community activities, and yet I never see Alejandro anywhere. And yet telling us that's a done deal seems like a really asinine way to just like tell us like no. Like no one really has, let's say, it feels like they're every time we complain about anything, it's just like, well, tough luck. Like this is just the side that you chose to live on. So like deal with it. And it's frustrating. I agree. I feel like I never got pulled. I have known plenty of people that have went up against it. And it's just like every time we were constantly told that's just like, no, it's just the way it is. Like, it's done. It's been done. Like at some point, it feels like the community is very much not being represented with just like the right people
At all.
at all pushing for us ever. It just feels like we've been sold out to whatever like corporate interest or whoever wants to build and break ground on this side just because we have the space. Like we weren't useful then, we're useful now because the population has expanded, but like none of our representatives are ever here. This is absolute garbage. Like I'm getting real sick and tired of it. That's all. Just
Another truth that's kind of come from this is that we were told initially there would be no tax dollars put into that project. And I think we're up to 6 million, right? We get, I think 4 from the city and 2 from the county or vice versa. My numbers might be skewed a little bit, but I think it's $6 million of tax dollars that are going to go to that already. So that domino of, you know, we're not paying for it has fallen. There's going to be a bunch more.
All right. Okay. Another comment?
I think it's a great idea. I'm excited for it. I don't need anyone to agree with me. I'm just so tired of talking about this. Can we please just move on? But I'm happy the councilman voted the way he did, and I think it's great, and I'm excited. I live right off Indiana as well. Bring it on. Here we go.
All right. So we'd like to thank Josh for, if you can liaise some of that stuff back to the mayor.
Yeah,
that will be-
absolutely. I've been taking notes. I appreciate the comments, and please reach out to me. You up there at the board have my contact info, and I will be there with you all in person next month.
Great.
Daniel,
So, yes, Alejandro.
you know, thank you for allowing me to have this meeting today online. Just did it. I've been to this meeting many times. We've seen each other many times in the same room. But in any case, many of the council members left Salt Lake City to have a quick meeting with other municipal governments on these issues that we are trying to figure out here in Denver. So I'll be back just in a few days. But in any case, my contact information, I'm going to put it on the chat. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we will be sending out as well. If you haven't signed up on the sign-in sheet there, we do send out a recap after this meeting with some of the highlights that we were able to glean from it. And so we'll have the contact information for each of these representatives here. So thank you, Josh and Alejandro. Just to get through the rest of our community partners, if any of them are present, do we have the Sorensen Center here? Neighborhood House?
Neighborhood House gave us a slide to show.
Okay. We'll show that slide in our announcements from the Neighborhood House. And anyone from NeighborWorks, Dave? Okay, well, those are some of our other organizations in our neighborhoods that we value and help and support us, and you know, keep them on the list there. So appreciate, we've already gotten a lot of the public discussion elements in there, which is good, some good interaction. We wanted to go ahead and move into some Poplar Grove updates. We wanted to mention these events that are coming up for Neighborhood House. That's where we're holding this meeting in person today. For those online that don't know where we're at, you're all probably at home or on the road or somewhere. But they have a few events coming up. May 18th, Breakfast with a Buddy. June, that's a client event?
Yeah, so if you're looking at the slide, the ones that are in green are open for the whole community. The ones that are yellow are for Neighborhood House clients and volunteers. So that's if that applies to you, totally go. It sounds like a lot of fun. We'll have more info on these events in our newsletter as well.
Great. Yeah, we'll have the slide in there for events that are going on. They look like they have a summer celebration in June and a tent party in September, are a couple of their public events. So great if you want to. The next slide. Okay, going into some of our updates of events that we have going on. We'll just kind of plow through these real quick. There is open mic night that is being hosted at the Sugar Space. Utah Slim is the contact for that. We'll put this in the update as well, but they sort of have them on Sunday evenings, first and third Sundays. It's a free event to, you know, both come to perform and come to just view. It's at the Sugar Space, which is just off of 200 South, just the other side of 900 West on Jeremy Ave. It's a great venue and a good way to support local talent or develop your own local talent. We wanted to mention to support our neighbors just to the south, Glendale. They've kind of replaced their normal night out against crime with this event, Art at the Confluence. So it's a big event at the Three Creeks Confluence Park. It's the new park on 900 West, just north of California. They're gonna have kids activities, art, music going on. It should be a really cool event. Saturday should be like 75 degrees. It should be a really nice day, 0% chance of rain. So it's a great time to get out and view that. Next slide. This was already mentioned earlier that the park, the public lands is having an Arbor Day festival. It's tomorrow afternoon. They're at the Cottonwood Park, which is just west. It's in Rose Park, Fair Park,
Jordan Meadows, I think.
Jordan Meadows
Yeah.
is the neighborhood there, but just east of Redwood Road, that area north of North Temple. Should be another cool event. Again, a lot of stuff happening on the west side that we want to make sure that we're doing our best to support and telling our friends about as well in the neighborhoods. We also have some events coming up, Poplar Grove Park, which is just a couple blocks over. There's an event called Park Performances that I'm doing. It's I just decided to create an opportunity to sort of have a concert performance at the park, have local groups tabling. It'll be the first weekend in June and in the middle of August as well. 2 different dates. If right now we're putting this up, if you know of anyone that lives in the Poplar Grove neighborhood that would like to share a talent, whether it's, you know, they play something or sing or dance, or I don't know, they want to give a dramatic reading of something. It's pretty flexible, open to anyone. There can be light refreshments, probably do like hot dogs and popcorn and stuff. But the council supporting this, mayor's office is supporting this through ACE grant. And we're looking to have a good time there. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, or info's on parkperformances.com. We also wanted to mention that there's the International Market is event happening at the Fair Park. They're having it all through the summer, and actually this year going through the winter time as well. They do it once a month. They're currently looking for artisan vendors, food vendors, also looking for live entertainment to perform at this event. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of information. You can look it up at slcinternationalmarket.com. This was something that was in the works for many years, and last year was the first year that they were able to do this event. And it was pretty successful. But we want to make sure that it continues to grow. So if you can find the way of supporting that, just even if you're not a vendor, just to show up at these events. They only do them once a month. And they're also, I think in the winter, they're going to be doing like a whole Winterfest 3-day event as well. So it should be a really cool thing. The first one is May 6th. So put that on the calendars. We want to start off strong, if at all possible, to help support that.
If you went to the Halloween Fest over at the Fair Park last October, that was one of the International Market events. So we'd like to keep that energy going.
Oh, great. And with the International Market, apparently one of our featured residents, Paul Boroff, will be performing at that one as well. So we'll see if I can get him at my park performances one as well. We just, as a community council, want to just remind everybody about the county's work with the free sandbags. If you want to go to the next slide. This is a map of our neighborhood. And so basically most of our neighborhood east of the river is in sort of flood danger zone if there is flooding that's going to occur. So we just want to put that on everyone's sort of radar. Hopefully it'll, be mitigated and it won't get hot too fast and we won't have any problems. But it's better safe than sorry. So residents can fill up to 25 bags per day. The address is in Midvale at 604 West 6960 South. We'll put this information up as well, but just wanted to put that on your radar. If you live in those blue areas or dark blue areas, have some sandbags on hand, make sure that you're mitigating the circumstances as much as you can. Hopefully we don't have a problem, but just keep that on your radar. And then we also wanted to, of course, mention getting this on your calendar the last Saturday in September, the 30th, from 11 to 3 p.m. at the police precinct, which is just a couple blocks south of here, is our community council's big community event, the Groove in the Grove. We shut the street off. We have tons of vendors. There's food, there's entertainment, bounce houses. I mean, it's a great event. We'd love to have as much support as possible. If you're at all interested in being involved in that event in some capacity, Karen Potts here is our main contact for that. But just reach out to any of the council members. We'd be happy to help you out with that, getting you connected to that.
Side note on that, if you're lucky, Daniel will perform free for us.
I sing sometimes, so.
He's a great singer.
It's very, very good.
What do you call it?
What?
Your style of music, I can't even think of it.
Classical opera?
Classical opera.
So,
So there's talent in this neighborhood. Do come out, if anything, to listen to Daniel.
sure. All right, and with that, I think we did pretty good. We plowed through a lot of those announcements. Did you have an announcement? Not, no.
We haven't started.
We hadn't actually started that. That was kind of, so the question here in the room was, has the comment section ended? And technically the comment section didn't really start. That was just the presentation section that turned into a comment section. So,
There'll be more time to comment.
yeah. So generally what we'll be doing is we'll have a few, we'll have these public presentations. We have 3 presentations that are going on today. And then after those, it's open discussion for other comments and things to bring forth. So your moment will come. Great. So to start things rolling off, did we have Bill? You're presenting on the roundabout?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we turn the time over to you to take the floor.
And Marissa helped me.
Working on that.
So I've got some slides to show, but I'm here for input on a project that is a CIP project originated from the neighborhood. And I don't know if Melanie's online, but it's from Melanie Pearson, if you know her. And it's a roundabout for your neighborhood.
Great.
And I'm excited to be here. I grew up in Salt Lake City, and my first real job was working on the State Street flood 40 years ago. Can you believe that? And I had a great time. But I'm with the transportation department, and Keegan's here to support me. He's more of the art department and the public outreach department. But briefly, I'm going to talk about roundabout design for bikes and pedestrians, and then your project specifically. The next slide. You guys know we had a nice roundabout, a traffic circle downtown on Main Street for over 100 years. And look at this, pedestrians and streetcars and bikes, they go through the roundabout great. And there was hardly any traffic. The speeds were about 10 to 15 miles per hour back then in the 30s. And back in 92, my job at transportation department was to get rid of this circle because light rail was coming through and making a sharp turn here. And poor Brigham had to move slightly to the north, and we lost this beautiful circle that lasted over 100 years. Next slide. I just went skiing at Brighton. They've got a roundabout at the entrance to Brighton. Look what they've got in the middle. They've got 10 feet of snow, a nice big snowman. And the snowbank I'm standing on is 20 feet tall. There's no place like Utah, right? Next slide. So what can we do in the roundabout? We'll talk more about that. But roundabout design, roundabout's different than the neighborhood traffic circle. Circles are a little bit smaller and usually on really small intersections. Roundabouts go in bigger intersections like on 10th West. But the speed reductions are greater, up to 26% speed reduction versus the traffic circle. Okay, next slide. Key features of a roundabout, a modern roundabout, is we have yield control and entry. It's a circulatory roadway. We have a center island. We're going to talk a lot about that. And on the edges, we have splitter islands and pedestrian crosswalks, landscaping, truck apron, and a lot of signs. And one thing it doesn't show is street lighting. That's an important part. Next slide. This is when you come into a roundabout, how do you drive? You're supposed to look to the left. If you don't see a car coming, you can enter. in your car. Now, if you're a pedestrian, why is a roundabout better than a regular intersection? Well, we've got these little islands called refuge islands. You cross one stream of traffic at a time, and you have a good place to hang out as you're making the crossing. But how can you make a roundabout safer for pedestrians? Even more safer than it can be. We'll talk more about that. Next slide. This is a roundabout on 20th East by Parley's, and it's by Highland High School, where I went to school. And it's got a lot of the features we're going to have in your roundabout. These are the splitter islands. This is the center part with the landscaping, and the truck apron is for when you got a big truck, maybe once a week, making a big left turn at the roundabout. Maybe he's doing a U-turn at the roundabout. Next slide. For bikes, we have special ramps to get out of the roundabout if you've got a bike trail going around the roundabout. This is one I designed in Riverdale, Utah, 20 years ago. And it's got some special features that we're going to incorporate in your roundabout. It's got these raised crosswalks. Next slide. So the one we're talking about is 10th West and 7th South. These raised crosswalks that we're going to put in your roundabout are on, as you drive on 7th South, this is the really wide street. We're going to have 6-inch tall raised crosswalks. And what's important about those is you never go up and down on that crosswalk. You're going to be up high. If you're a kid, cars can see you better. You'll be elevated. And if you're on a skateboard or a bike or pushing a baby buggy, they're really easy to get across. You guys don't have a skate park. It might become a popular place hangout for skaters. So I'll warn you about that. Next slide. This is your intersection. What's great about Brigham Young and his big streets. So we can fit this roundabout within the existing footprint without touching the corners. But we are going to remove the concrete on the edges, the corners, and we're going to make a new pathway for pedestrians around the intersection. Okay, next slide. This is it. 10th West, 7th South. 7th South is an extremely wide street, 82 feet of asphalt. There's 70 to 80 feet. So if you're a pedestrian crossing, you're going to be elevated on this raised crosswalk. And when cars come through, they'll have to slow down to 10 to 15 miles per hour. That's designed for that low speed. Because of drainage, I think the drainage is going to continue here and here. But on the west side, the drainage will be blocked because we already got proper drainage in place. So we don't have to make any changes for drainage. But on the east side, we will have a little bit of special up and down. So, but it'll be flat from here to here, but it'll come down and it'll be a dip right here for the gutter. In the middle, this is the exciting part. We're going to make a place for art. So be careful what you ask for. So,
but someone did mention that it would have a lot of the tattoos, the
graffiti.
tramp stamps, if we got the bottom half. So
Be careful.
We're not going to vote for that.
So next slide, I'm going to show you some examples. Next slide. Okay, there's the beautiful well. That project took 20 years to go in. You know that? Your project's going to take at most about 3 years to go in. It's already at 70% design. Right. Is it going to be like that? This one in St. George, one in West Jordan where I used to work. How boring. There's nothing in them. But you got the well. I think it really makes a statement. Next slide. Now, a lot of this maintenance people at the park say, hey, we just put some little dead, half dead plants in the middle. They're bare, with xeriscaping, right? Desert scaping. But this is the prettiest roundabout I've ever seen is Sedona. If you ever go to Sedona. Next slide. Another shot. It's got a nice wall. That's something you might consider for your roundabout. Okay, next slide.
Bill, sorry, we have a request from online. It says every time you turn away from the mic, it's hard to hear you.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna eat the microphone now. What?
Not too close.
Every time.
Is that better?
You could just stand like a foot away is fine.
A foot away,
It's
okay.
just you keep standing over to point and then.
Yeah, I wish I had a stick, so I need. Okay, for you guys online, you can see this better. So in St. George at the Tabernacle Roundabout, it's been there 20 years. Their arts people change what's in the middle constantly. During Halloween, they had this big spider in the middle, and now it's a swimmer for the Ironman. So they change theirs periodically. They have so many different things. And if you want to look at examples of artwork, Bend, Oregon, if you Google Bend, Oregon, I thought something might be better than a well. Some fish. These are steelhead trout, salmon or something in Bend, Oregon. Next slide. Conservative community called Carmel, Indiana has a lot of landscaping like this with a little wall, little landscape. And then in Wenatchee, Washington, they had an art competition. They came up with this pretty artwork. Looks almost like stained glass, almost a cathedral. Next one. This one I like a lot. There's actually one in Fruta, Colorado, with a big dinosaur in the middle. And here's one from Portugal. Next one. And these guys are spinning around. We have to be careful. Whatever you pick, don't pick naked statues because it could become an issue. So Colorado had to deal with that. And next slide. So Bend, Oregon has an art tour. They've got 30 roundabouts. You can go from one to another if you ever visit, see all the different art. Next slide. A boring roundabout. Riverdale City has the most roundabouts per capita. They got 6,000 people and 10 roundabouts in Utah. But look how boring that is in the middle. It's just a little flagpole and some rock. So low maintenance, right? Next slide. On the Jordan River Trail, I think we have a lot of opportunity for, if you have an intersection on the trail, to put bike abouts for bikes. Next slide. We're working on another project with bikes, and this roundabout's got bike path around the roundabout on the east side. On same street though, 7th South and 5th East. Next slide. And if you want to see the last project I designed, it's in Cottonwood Heights at Brighton High School. And it's really incredible. And it's kind of a different shape of roundabout. It's kind of avocado shape or egg shape. And it's got every pedestrian feature. It's got flashing crosswalks. It's at a high school, so all the crosswalks zigzag. So the kids will look at traffic when they cross. But we begged them to put a raised crosswalk and they wouldn't do it. So our project's going to be better than that $2 million roundabout in Cottonwood Heights. Next slide. So we're going to put this information on our website and links to it and get those out to you. That's all I had. If we have any questions, go ahead. So we're at 70% design. We'd like to go to bid this spring. The artwork part can be in future years, just like the well roundabout. They didn't do it right away. It's never definite because we might get a high bid. That's what happened in Conwood Heights. They had to bid it like 3 times because the bids were too high until the bids came down. Oh.
Construction could really hinder what we're doing there, right in front of the precinct. So anyway.
Yeah, right now we're not sure, but if everything works out great
For those asking questions.
this summer.
coming up to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry, her question was when is construction going to start? And the groove in the grove could be impacted in the back.
Can we get a temporary setup like they did the 99?
So his question is, can we do a pop-up roundabout with cones and stuff? We're not going to do that. No, we don't have to. We're just going to go ahead and do it. It could take. So this project was applied for like 2 years ago. So if it's done in a year from now, that'll be a 3-year time frame in the back.
Yeah, I have a question. I just think everybody up and down west we put up so many anti-speeding signs on that.
Can you guys hear that online? He says 10th West is crazy.
I guarantee it. So, but anyway, we love this thing. It's just those race walks and definitely slow people down.
And
They'll crash into a roundabout.
you can't have a police officer out on your street 24/7, but having a feature like this on your street is like having a police officer there, making people slow down. One thing I didn't mention is there's 4 street lights that are going in on the project. Each crosswalk will have a street light lighting up the crosswalk. And in the back, last question, okay?
If you have a question, the online people, which we have about 20 people online, 15 people online, can't hear you. You just come nearby.
Yeah.
We'll get to the online questions as well.
We'll be a duo here.
About approximately how much does this cost?
$500,000.
A lot of money.
That's cheap.
It's cheap. Well,
Yeah.
let me just interject just a couple of things. I've been a resident here for 20 years and we have really difficult road situations. And I'm talking about specifically cars parked right up to the curbs. So we don't have visibility both for pedestrians and vehicles in many situations. That's just one of the things that's never, we've addressed it with the transportation department. They told me this, we don't have enough people to police that. They're not even willing to put signs. We have chuck holes all along 9th West. There's so many issues that should come as a priority, in my opinion, than to put a circle in there. Yeah, we do have speeders that go through. A lot of them are because of the drug activity. I know this firsthand. So I just feel like priorities should be considered.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Great. And just to elaborate a little bit, the funding for this project is part of what they call a CIP grant. So there's specific applications for specific projects. And so, like, for example, every year there's a set number of people that apply for projects and maybe this many get awarded funding. And then that funding is allocated for those specific projects. And so if there are specific ideas and Melanie, who's on the board, this was one of her projects. She lives on 1000 West and she wanted to see this done. So she applied for this 2.5 years ago and it went through that whole process. And so it's like, so it's great to hear that concern, but yeah. So there's just mentioning that there's many different problems out there, a lot of different projects. So every year they have rounds and these CIP projects come from individuals. So an example would be next year when it rolls around, you can apply for as many CIP projects as you want and get those possibly eventually funded. So just mentioning that this project, it's not like, oh, well, we can allocate that money to something else at this point because this was already budgeted and approved, like 2 years ago. So just putting that on, just so we all know where the money is coming from for this particular
Right. We're not stealing money from potholes. We'll keep all the potholes where they are. We're not, it's
So-
not going to touch that bucket's not going to be
We did have
touched.
an online question from Cecilia. You can go ahead and unmute and ask that.
Hi, thanks, guys. Bill, first of all, thank you so much for being so responsive to my questions earlier in the month regarding ensuring that we are protecting our mature trees so that they are not impacted by the construction of the circle. I am a huge proponent of the circle because I live right on the corner of 7th South and 10th West. And so I can't tell you, in the 3 years that I've lived here, I have seen 7 serious automobile accidents in that intersection. I've seen 4 hit and run accidents in that section. Thankfully, none of them involved human beings. They were all animals, pets, people's dogs and cats getting run over by people who were speeding. And in one of the accidents, I nearly lost my fence because the car came right up to my yard. So I am super grateful that this project is happening, and I really appreciate all your efforts, Bill. I do have one concern that I want to voice regarding the plans, and that is in regards to the streetlights. Currently, on that corner intersection, we have 1 streetlight. And I am wondering what type of lighting you're planning on using for those streetlights, because we are, I am personally concerned about the bird migrations, right? So I know that the city has been doing for years a program to reduce the light pollution in the city. And I just want to make sure that whatever street lights are added in that project, that they don't add to the light pollution.
Yeah, I'm not a streetlight expert, but we've got one right here.
Not a streetlight expert, but it is a part of the actually streetlight master plan. Is looking to revamp, honestly, every single street lamp in the city over the course of the next, I think it's like next 15, 20 years. But the thing is, with this particular project, you're going to run into, that's kind of a cross division thing. Public Utilities is the one who does all the lighting. And so if you are interested, online, we do have the streetlight master plan. So if you want to take a look at that to see what kind of street lighting would come to your area, and also to see just kind of like the luminescence of these lights and how it affects the birds and animals and nature in general.
So let me translate. The streetlights will be shorter than the ones you have now. They'll be about 18 feet, and they'll have cutoffs so they won't shine up into the sky. So that's the technical terms. Okay, any more questions online? And Cecilia, I met her shoveling her driveway on a very snowy day.
There's one question from the chat, and that is, what's the cost of 3 speed bumps?
A speed bump cost?
Learned the math today, huh?
So we just did a project on 13th South for concrete speed bumps, and they were $22,000 each. And I think asphalt ones, those are concrete. So asphalt's cheaper at about 6,000 to 8,000 a piece, because contractors get paid really well to build those.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
we need to get rolling. Are there any other pressing questions? If not, you will have contact information. You can feel free to reach out. Thanks, Bill. All right, next up, we have some time for our district attorney, Sim Gill. So the floor is yours.
I'm trying to be mindful of your time. Looks like I want to make sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sim Gill. I'm the Salt Lake County DA. And what we're trying to do this year, the reason I'm here is I wanted to personally come down to every community council. So our goal is to visit every community council in Salt Lake County and meet with them personally, talk a little bit about our office, what we do. And then once we meet with everybody at the community council, then we're going to try to do a summit at the end of the year. Our plan is to then invite 2 or 3 members from each community council to come down to the Salt Lake County DA's office, where we can talk in more detail about some of the stuff that's going on. But just a little bit in terms of general information. I just won my 4th term as an elected office. My jurisdiction is all of Salt Lake County. And the reason we wanted to go to each community council is just like what's been going on here. This is really, to me, where democracy comes at the granular level. You guys are here because you're interested in your community. You want to take care of solutions that are granular. And I think this is really important to make that personal contact, because as the Salt Lake County DA, that is my jurisdiction as the district attorney. But it's kind of unique sort of title I also have is, before I got elected as the district attorney, I was also the chief city prosecutor for Salt Lake City for 10 years. So when I got elected as DA, I brought the Salt Lake City prosecutor's office in-house through an interlocal agreement between the county and Salt Lake City. And that's housed now in the Salt Lake County DA's office. So what does that really mean? That means we have the largest municipal prosecutor's office in the state, combined with the largest district attorney's office in the state. So our footprint is that approximately 40% of all crime in the state of Utah is prosecuted out of that one combined office. And you may say, well, why would you want to do that? And one of the reasons is, one, economies of scale for purposes of tax purposes, taxpayer expenditures. But the other reason is, one of my projects that for all my professional life has been, I've been a prosecutor for 27 years, is therapeutic justice models and treatment models. And when you have 40% of the market share, for lack of a better idea, you can gather great data, and the programming that is successful there then pretty much can be replicated anywhere else in the state as well. So with that in mind, for example, I'm a huge supporter of therapeutic justice models. I helped start the very first mental health court in the state of Utah 21 years ago. And what our data shows is those individuals who are intersecting with the criminal justice system, their recidivism rate is about 74% if we don't provide treatment. Right? But if we give them access to treatment, wrap those services around them, we can reduce that recidivism rate from 74% down to 19 and 22%, which is a huge impact. Now, we're not going to cure mental illness, but we can certainly help maintain it, mitigate it, and create an avenue of access, because this population is intersecting with the criminal justice system. Similarly, drug court, recidivism rate is about 68% if somebody's drug addicted. And I don't think that people who are drug addicted, that's a public health issue. They should be getting access to treatment. And we can reduce that down from about 68% down to about 23, 24%. And for dollar, that's a great return, as well as making helping people make the transition from that addiction. Similarly, just recently, we started the first veterans court about 5 years ago. We saw there were a lot of people who were going to these wars and coming back. The data shows that one rotation will give you approximately 24 to 25% chances of getting PTSD. If you do multiple rotations, you can end up with PTSD at an acute level. And we have people coming back with this unresolved trauma. And as a result, their personal life breaks down. They lose their jobs. We find them being homeless and self-medicating with illicit drugs. And they're intersecting with the criminal justice system. So when we created Veterans Court, we partnered with the VA, which is here. We have a VA here. And that way we increase capacity for our local residents without having to duplicate the expenditure, but with those federal dollars that were available with that population. And that helps with their drug addiction, mental health issues, transitional housing. So it's a great partnership. And our Veterans Court program has won national awards as a result of that. The other thing that I want to just sort of tell you is that the scope and size of our office is that every year we will screen roughly, that is review, roughly about 17 to 18,000 cases. And we will file on approximately about 13.5 to 14,000 of those cases. And that's for the district attorney's office. The DA's jurisdiction is Salt Lake County wide. Our charging jurisdiction is Class A misdemeanors all the way up to capital homicide cases. But since I also get to wear the hat of Salt Lake City prosecutor through the interlocal agreement, we also then prosecute everything from infraction to Class B misdemeanors in the jurisdiction of Salt Lake City here as well. The third title that I have as you're elected is beyond the crime prosecution side of it, is that I'm also in-house legal counsel to a $1.8 billion corporation called Salt Lake County Government. So I have also about 26 civil attorneys, and we do everything from tax policy to zoning policies. The elected mayor, the sheriff, elected council are our clients, and then we litigate on behalf of Salt Lake County government as a civil client as well. And that means that, for example, we will sue on behalf and defend the county when we've been impacted by the opioid abuse that has happened. We sued on behalf of Salt Lake County, Big Pharma, and we're involved in a multi-jurisdictional litigation class action lawsuit. And as a result of that, we just recovered $57 million for Salt Lake County, and which Salt Lake City is a part of. And that money then comes back for programming and treatment support that will be reinvested back with from the guidance from the county council and the county mayor. So that's sort of the scope and span of what we are doing. And the other thing that we're really excited about is that it's not just about holding individuals accountable who are violent offenders. We want to make a distinction between those who are causing violence and are a risk to our community, different from those individuals we can actually help. So, for example, we know that one of the things that we focused on, which I'm really excited about, is about 3 years ago, we started for the first time, we created the standalone Victim Support Services Division in the Salt Lake County DA's office. Our office combined is about 350 people. I have approximately 140 lawyers in there. And our Victim Support Services Division is one of our largest divisions in our office. There's about 40 people. It's staffed by MSW, LCSW, clinical social workers, victim advocates. And it is the largest, one of the largest one, because as victims come through, we're seeing victims who are coming through with incredible trauma and giving them that support as that case moves through the system, we found to be really critical. And that's not only with adults victims that we have, but we started to also focus on our child victims. So we recognize from research that child victims who come through it, that those suffer incredible trauma. So we're talking about children who are victimized by crime, or more importantly, they actually witness crime that is occurring, and that leaves unresolved trauma. And unresolved trauma left unattended, what research shows manifests itself as intergenerational trauma that gets passed. So one of the things, we're not out there to reinvent the world, but we said, okay, for all those children's cases that we're prosecuting, where they're witnesses to trauma or they're victims, that we just didn't want to simply do their case, because historically we would do the case and we say, thank you for your cooperation, and then we move on to the next case. But that child or that victim holds on to that trauma. So we worked with the University of Oklahoma, and for the first time, we've created what we call Camp Hope. So what research shows us that children have incredible neuroplasticity, that if you can actually make that intervention with them, they won't be able to take that with them and then subsequently grow up and pass it. So we make a 3-year commitment on those cases that we prosecute. We make a 3-year commitment with these children. And we said, how do we give them their childhood back? How do we build that resiliency so trauma doesn't define them? And we came up with an idea called summer camp. And it is a summer camp which is fully funded by the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office. And we make a 3-year commitment. We take them up to the mountains. There's children in this valley right here who look at those mountains, but they've never been up there. They've never gone camping. So we take them for a week-long summer camp to give them their childhood, but we staff them with trauma-informed counselors. So they're actually making that a very positive impact on them. And when they come back from that summer camp, we just didn't want to be one and done. So that 3-year commitment means that with some children, we will take them to summer camp 3 years in a row. And also on a monthly basis, we also have what's called our Pathways program with the same children. And then we are also meeting with them on a monthly basis to help build their pro-social skills. We're helping them meet peer-to-peer with other children who have experienced that. And that's building up their confidence. And that's a 12-month, month-to-month that we do as well. So we will make a 3-year, 36-month commitment with that. And what our research is further showing us is that these children not only have challenges through their interpersonal social skills, but often these children also suffer academically. So now we're starting to explore the idea on Saturdays that, as if they're part of our Pathways program, that we would offer tutorial services for up to like 3 hours on Saturday mornings. So these children who are part of this Pathways program can also get academic support as well. And I shared that with you because that's something you wouldn't think about the district attorney's office doing, but it's important that we not only hold offenders accountable who are a risk to our community, but when this intersection with the criminal justice system happens, that we're actually coming up with practical, pragmatic solutions that can actually have long-term impact. And that investment in children is really critical because, as I said, that unresolved trauma will manifest itself in subsequent substance abuse, drug addiction, mental health issues, violence, family violence, and then that gets passed intergenerationally. So we're trying to interrupt that with that child, but we're also trying to interrupt it from being passed from one family as they grow older as well. And so I shared some of those things about what we're doing to sort of give you an introduction about our office. There's a lot more stuff that we're doing, but we wanted to make this personal connection with you because you as a community council have a lot of involvement. And as the Salt Lake County District Attorney, regardless of what city you're in, you are my constituents. You are the community that I have to represent, and it's my privilege to represent if something happens here. And that's why I think it's really important to make this one-on-one connection that historically I don't think we've leaned into. And so we made it a point this year that I was going to go and visit every community council personally. And then, like I said, our goal is to ask for 2 or 3 volunteers from each community council. And then we will do a summit at the Salt Lake County DA's office where we will go into more detail and sort of share with you what your district attorney's office is doing. I consider myself just a temporary caretaker. And at the end, that office belongs to you. So one of the challenges that I pose to our entire staff is, how do we build a public institution that is publicly accessible to our community of citizens, not in an academic sense, but in an actual way? And one of those things that we're focused upon is that as a result, every Friday for 22 years, which I've done, which I want to welcome you as well. Every Friday, I set aside half a day or longer for what I call community meetings. Any citizen in our community in Salt Lake County who wants to meet with me should have direct access. So I block that time off. And if you want to come down and talk about a case that we prosecuted or something that is of interest or concern to you, then you shouldn't have a third-party intermediary. You should have direct access to your elected. And if you want to come down for a half an hour, 45 minutes and yell at me, that's your right. And it's my privilege to listen, right? Access does not mean agreement, but we will try to have an intelligent conversation. But you should never feel like you could not have access to that office or to me directly. So that's something I also want to encourage you, that if you want to do that, every Friday, call our office, ask for a community meeting on a Friday, and we will work you into our schedule. And we do that 52 weeks and make ourselves available. So with that, I'm going to pause to be respectful of your time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you have, or if you want to come and meet with me on a Friday afternoon. But I thank you for the privilege to just come down and have this opportunity with you. And I'm hoping that we will maybe meet again and make ourselves available.
Great. Awesome, Sim. So we have a bunch of his cards here. We'll also have his contact information in the email that we send out afterwards. We don't probably have time for every question that might be burning in this room for Sim, but is there 1 or 2 that are really powerful that we really wanted to ask Sim?
Because I like to pick fights.
Okay.
I tried to pit the county against the city with an issue of meth use in public park bathrooms. So what I was seeing was through the night in the summers, especially because they're locked in the winter, someone would come in and use in the bathrooms as a shelter. They'd be passed out there, and then the city folks that come and clean the bathrooms would kick them out, brush them out, and then they would try and clean it. And then in the afternoons, kids coming from school or the surrounding area during the day will come and use the park and then try and use the bathroom. And then that just step and repeat. So the city was pretty proactive in helping out with bathrooms for a while, but the issue that I see now is, cinder block is a sponge for that smoke. And when you walk around the outside of that building, you can smell the meth.
Yeah.
It reeks.
Right.
And so it's not going away. And if I was to have that in a house, the county would shut it down.
Right.
Right. But when I asked the county to come out and say, hey, I want you to test this building
Yeah.
and tell me no, we're not going to do that.
Oh, and what was what were they saying?
Because I was pitting the county against the city.
Yeah. But was it a city park versus a county
It's a city
facility?
park.
Yeah, so they're probably going to talk.
But
about
if I
that
go to the
different.
health services, they say that's a county thing.
So I would really encourage you to talk to the health department. So one of the things that I get to do, as I was mentioning, my client is also the health department. And in fact, one of the things my background is actually in environmental and natural resources law before I became a prosecutor. And so we've created an environmental crimes task force. And our environmental crimes task force is trying to do code enforcement. So ask for somebody from our environmental crimes task force, and we can try to liaison with the health department for you to say, okay, well, what is it? Is it a jurisdictional issue? Is it whatever that is? So let's try to facilitate that conversation. So if you call, we're happy to reach out to the health department, try to help facilitate that contact, and let's figure out what that question is, because that's a legitimate concern. As you were saying, I was thinking, boy, he's going to talk maybe about the needles that are there that people are, stepping on. But the saturation of meth is a toxic contaminant. So we need to be, you're right. If this happened in a motel room, we'd close that motel down until that was clean, because that would be toxic exposure. Right. So if it's rising to that level, then let's address that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just do this. First of all, I just want to say thank you for everyone that's here, community members, of course, because that means you care about our community and representatives. And this question, we've spent a lot of time talking about infrastructure, and I really appreciate how the criminal justice system is working to address the mental health and trauma of these people and breaking the chains and having children's programs, which I think is great. So I want to say thank you for that. But I want to specifically address a return to focus on the safety and specifically health of our community. As this gentleman just mentioned about the meth in a bathroom, I guess, is that what you're saying? We have a kind of similar situation in our neighborhood where we have a pretty known meth distribution and creation house. And there's more than one. And, obviously we can't corroborate that ourselves, but we have tried to address it in every way possible. We have called the fire department when there was a giant explosion and a column of fire up to the wires of the house, and I had to call a neighbor because her shed was in danger of being on fire. Right. And they went inside their house and turned all the lights off. And when the cops came, they wouldn't even come outside. And they had to bang down the door to get them to come outside. And they said they were going to look into it, yada, yada. Long story short, they have built several of these structures, and we constantly smell this chemical smell. And I think it affects not only the health of the nearby neighbors, but also all of the people who they're producing and manufacturing these drugs for. Right. And this is something that we have asked everybody that we can think of. We have addressed zoning, we have addressed health, we have gone to the police. I think my mom has even talked to you in the past. Yes. Okay. Anyway, my point is what can we do today to get someone to come and look at this and address it? It's been 7 years.
So you were talking about a really interesting issue. The first level is criminal enforcement. So as the Salt Lake County District Attorney, I have 18 law enforcement agencies that feed into the Salt Lake County DA's office. So that law enforcement agency, that wherever that city is, so if you think about Salt Lake County, there's Draper City, there's Sandy, there's West Valley, there's Salt Lake City. So they have their own local law enforcement. So before I can act upon it in a criminal prosecution, that agency has to go and investigate that. They gather that information and that's what they bring it to me to screen. And then I can say, okay, this is missing this piece, or this is missing this piece, or we have it, and then I can file it.
Okay.
Okay. So from an investigative perspective, that really is something that I would ask you to maybe liaison with your law enforcement representative here and talk about that.
We have.
He's right there. He's right there. Yeah. So so
So is he the one that would start
So I would say
criminal
that now,
investigation
I would,
for
yeah,
us?
absolutely. The other thing, which we used to have, and we have some aspects of it, but one of the things that we're thinking about doing more robustly. Now, one of the things is we're coming out of COVID. We're sort of dealing with the backlog of stuff. And when I was the city prosecutor, we used to have, and I think we have some iteration of it, but not as robust as what we used to do, which is where our community action teams, you remember, and we have some variation of it. And the prosecution used to be a part of that. And what was great about community action teams, to answer your question, is that you would have the prosecution there, you would have law enforcement there, you would have code enforcement there. And in its most heyday, we had AP&P access and representation there. So when we would identify a place like this, we would say, okay, first of all, who's there? Who are the residents? Are they on paper? If they're on paper, let's have AP&P go do the knock and talk, because they're on paper, they're supposed to answer the door. If there is a code enforcement issue, let's send the code enforcement people to gather that information. And if then law enforcement comes in there to see if there's any criminal issue. But then we're staffing that as a multidisciplinary team staffing. And then you look at those hotspots within each different district of that CAT team. So while we had a federal grant for it, and when I was a city prosecutor, we did that, but that practice kind of went away. But we are starting to have some conversations again of asking how can we revitalize that community action team in that robust way. And if we can do that, then we can maybe try to bring multiple different resources in a joint effort, rather than that passing of that buck that you're sort of talking about, right? So that is something that we are talking about, and to see if we can reinvigorate that community action team. But if you have any specific issues like that, the first place to start with is with law enforcement. Before I can act upon it, I have to get their reports.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, on a follow-up,
Yeah.
is there going to be more of a budget that's going to be in place so that we can have the follow-ups of all these cops and these investigators, that they'll be able to actually follow up these
So in one
issues?
sense, I'm really cheap because I have the city prosecution, and I have my funding with that, and I have the district attorney's position, right? So for example, if it's somebody who's just doing simple use, those are going to be misdemeanors. But if somebody's manufacturing and point of sale and direction manufacturing, that's going to be a first degree felony. So as the district attorney, my job is to prosecute those cases. So from that perspective, it's not going to need any new resources from me on that, right? But if you're going to recreate that community action team, it's going to have some diversion of funds that will have to happen at that level. And it is about pre-existing. One good aspect is these are pre-existing agencies whose job is to work on those issues. So instead of being in silos, we're actually bringing them together so they can actually communicate. So in that sense, while there is time and money that is being spent, there's also pre-allocated dollars for existing functions for those different departments or functions, if you will. So it's about just getting everybody together and investing in that community action team model in the way that we used to do it. Because I think the more urbanized we become, and Salt Lake City is about as urbanized as you can get, those issues really require that kind of direct granular thing. And I think we've kind of gotten away from that.
Well, yeah, on the FBI site, it actually lists how much the crime has gone up in every area. And in Poplar Grove, it's gone up over 460% in total crime. And that's in the last few years.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering if, like, above and beyond all these wonderful programs and these infrastructure, I think that safety should be the very bottom,
Absolutely.
like beginning
So-
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Safety is number one.
Absolutely. And so for example, the data shows that, for example, in 2020 was our kind of peak year. Everything sort of went up. Now I have the data from the county. The county data was 101,000 cases in Salt Lake County, right? There's been a 17,000 case drop from the high of 2020 of 101,000. We're at 84,000. Even when these
are cases that are prosecuted.
These are cases that were generated in investigations,
right,
and which then would result, some of them, in prosecution, right? But this is crime for Salt Lake, in Salt Lake County. Even as Salt Lake County, and I want us to keep it in context, because when you're living there, it's very real and it's very existential. So I respect that experience, right? But I also want us to have the right kind of perspective on it. So in 2020 to 2021, there was an increase in crime that happened in Salt Lake County. That increase in Salt Lake County was 8%. Okay, 4%, and it was 8% in Salt Lake City. Okay, and now, to me, as a county DA and also as the Salt Lake City prosecutor, that 4% increase is an important increase. That's not acceptable. But at the same time, in Utah County, it increased by 38%. In Tooele County, it increased by 66%. In Davis County, it increased by 12%. Weber County by 17%. And in Cache County by 40%. So I put those numbers out there to give you a context of that, not taking away the fact that when you're living there, it's very real, and I want to acknowledge that. But this perception that somehow in Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County, this is rampant. Yes, there is crime there and it's concentration, and we need to target it and address it. And when I talk to law enforcement or when I talk to policymakers, I try to say, okay, what are our asset investments we're doing? What are ways that we can address that issue? But in the last 12 months, even from that high from 21 has actually dropped down even a little bit more. But what we are not addressing is, okay, what about that one violent person who is persistently present? What are we doing about that home, like you were saying? And what is the strategy to address it? Because while that data sounds great, if you're living next to it, that data doesn't mean anything. So,
right.
So
well, and if it was high to begin with,
Yeah.
and that's not our
Yeah.
only violent
Yeah.
crime that we've had.
Sure,
We've
sure.
had a murder on the street.
Yeah,
We've
we had one today.
a knifing. We've
Yeah.
had someone
Sure.
broke into my mom's house. Yeah.
And just so you know, so
And we're not blaming you.
No,
We're
I know
just
you're
saying-
not, and I'm not taking it
Yeah,
as that.
we're just wanting to
this is what
highlight
the
the
community
safety.
conversations are supposed to be
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
So I don't take it personally at all.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not at all. And so from an operational perspective, the thing that I'm trying to focus from our direction as a matter of policy, which is that those violent offenders are our premium prosecution. Because that person who is a risk to our community is the person. So while I'm a huge fan of therapeutic models, I think those therapeutic models are options that we should be applying aggressively for those who need the help, who are not a risk to our community in the same way, right? So for example, I make a qualitative distinction between somebody who's a drug addict versus who's a drug producer and who's predatory in the sales, right? So while I want to put the drug user into treatment, I want to take the drugs producer and prosecute and send them to jail or prison, right? So if I have somebody who's mentally ill, who I expect them to be non-compliant and combative and angry, that is a violence of a sort, but it is the manifestation of their mental illness that produces it, versus somebody who's actually chasing somebody around with a machete, right? So that is a person who's a risk to our community. That person I may have no other option but to incapacitate. And I'm not afraid to put that person into jail or prison. But at the same time, I want to be able to segregate the person who who is a nuisance to our community versus a risk to our community. So from our office, that's our commitment on
We
that.
just wanted to
Right.
highlight
No,
this particular community.
and I think
the safety.
I think that is exactly why I'm coming out there. And I think that's why you should talk to the liaison there and say, okay, here's the identified thing. What are we doing about it? And prospectively speaking, one of the things that I'm hoping to do is that we start those community action teams, because the 7 districts that we had in Salt Lake City, each had its own community action team. People moved month to month meetings, and then they got input from community council. Okay, you're living here. Which place is that a trouble place, right? And even as we go through the criminal and code enforcement option, then there is also the civil enforcement component, which the civil side of the city attorney's office can do civil nuisance abatement action. And if it's a house of prostitution, you can do civil forfeitures of those run through civil nuisance abatement action. But we need to sort of do it as a collective conversation rather than the siloed sometimes approach we end up with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and please come down and on a Friday, and love to see you all. Oh.
Thank you.
If we can, I'm happy to chat with you outside, because I know they've got to do the stuff, and I've been up since 3 a.m. so I'm a little punchy by now. So,
Great.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you so
thanks,
much.
Sam. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we had one more presentation, just an update on the senior center. Do we have someone here for that? Are they online?
We're online.
Okay, great. All right, so the time is yours. I think Marissa here can help if you're doing some screen sharing.
Yes, yeah, Jeff should have a presentation. And then I'm Olivia. I'm the manager at the Sunday Anderson Senior Center. So I'll be able to help with any questions at the end that are specific to the center.
Yes, and I'm Jeff Davis with MSR Design. And yeah, if I could just share my screen.
Yes, screen share should be enabled.
Okay, great.
What senior center did you mention?
It's the one on 900 West and 900 South.
Okay, okay. Yes, repair.
Yeah, this is an update on the remodel.
All right, let's see. It's not sharing the right screen. Sorry, hold on just a minute here. We'll just zoom in on this one.
Great.
All right, you seeing that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I've just got a few slides here. I'll just walk through. We were here a couple of months ago to get community input, and we've been going around to all of the to the library in Glendale, to the Sorensen Rec Center, to the Senior Center, and some other community events to gather input. So we've been gathering input about the Senior Center. You can see a picture of it in the upper left-hand corner here. But it's the Senior Center is a place for active seniors who can come and get a meal or or participate in activities. And as we talked about with the community a couple of months ago when we were here at this meeting, we're integrating a cafe style, and we got a lot of good feedback about that. So we've continued with that there could be a cafe that provides the seniors with their meals, but could also then provide coffee or meals for anybody who wanted to come in and be a paying customer. It's similar to the Midvale, Draper, and Mill Creek senior centers that have that similar piece. So these are the different some of the different issues that we talked to you about last time about your community and different what the most important things in your community were. And the things that have come to the top are access to services, food and security hunger, and access to nature. And so we're looking at ways the senior center can help support your community in these areas. So I just want to walk through a few slides here that show you maybe some of the ways that we're looking to kind of support that and integrate some of those things into the design. One other thing I wanted to mention as we go through this is we've been talking with Salt Lake City as well. This is a Salt Lake County facility. We've been talking about to Salt Lake City and also about and the RDA and about improvements that may enhance it even further. But one of the things you can see on this map, it's at the corner of 900 South and 900 West. And this is the floor plan of the building. One of the things that we're looking at doing, this is the cafe, putting the cafe right on the corner with some outdoor dining areas that can help start to activate the street, and also creating some larger windows that help you kind of see in and start to have a connection out with the street corner here. Then we're also looking at a new entrance that'll come off of the parking lot to the north, and we'll move the parking lot entrance further north as well. There'll also be the access to the parking lot off of 900 South down below that will connect through. We're also looking at creating a walking path that connects from Genesee Avenue down to 900 South that will create this orange trail, kind of creates a loop that people can walk. But that also through the crosswalks, starts to connect into the community and, to the trail across the street, and starts to create more access to nature. So here's the building. And what we're doing is looking at taking this corner and really trying to focus on activating this corner. So that's kind of the corner that we're looking at from the outside, of really developing into something new and giving it a new look. Here's a little bit more insight into the floor plan. You can see the entry from the north comes into the cafe area, a lounge area, multi-purpose room where activities happen, an exercise equipment room, billiards, art, an art room, and then of course a kitchen to support the cafe. And then here's what it looks like right now on the inside. And based on the input we've been receiving back from the community, and the aging services with Salt Lake County Aging Services, this is what we're looking at, a possibility of what it may start to look like on the inside. One other view, this is the interior of the kind of lounge area in the existing building, and here we're looking at what it might look like. And so we just wanted to give you an update and then get additional feedback of what you think, and any other suggestions that you might have as the community. I see someone giving some comments, but we're not hearing them.
Okay, sorry. Well, we have another question. We're going to start that again. This is Danny, the local naturalist.
Yeah, I'm the local naturalist. I'm the guy. So,
great.
The Fife Wetland Preserve is only 1 block away. at the Jordan River there with the bridge across to the preserve. Plus there's some other good nature opportunities right there, not only in the International Peace Gardens, but Fifth South Park and all the way down the 9 line, all the way out to the Surplus Canal. So I'm just saying that there's some great opportunities right there near. And I would even, offer a presentation for the people there if you guys are interested in supporting that Fife Wetland Preserve and getting some real nature there.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's why we were trying to connect into some of these existing trails. And Olivia, you could speak to whether a kind of a presentation at the senior center would be something that would be helpful to, especially after it opens, to have help them understand the great access that they have.
Yes, definitely. And I'll put my contact information in the chat too, that can be given out to also everybody that's at the meeting. If you have any other questions or stuff like that. And Dan, we can definitely set up something in the future to talk about that.
Thanks. Great. Any other pressing questions or concerns? We appreciate the update, guys. We're glad to know that it's still going in that direction. If anyone online or in person has any more questions or concerns, feedback to give there, we'll also have their contact information in the update that we'll send out after the meeting.
Great, thank you.
All right, so I think a lot of our commenters have already commented, but this is kind of we have a little bit of time at the end. We always want to leave open for public discussion if there's any issues. Now, you can always reach out individually to any member of the council. We're happy to try to pass on that information. We are somewhat limited in what we can actually do about the complaints, but the time is yours. If there's any issues that we want to bring up, we try to limit these to 2-minute comments. But does anyone here in the room or online have any issues they wanted to bring up and share with the council or bring to light that hasn't already been discussed? We have one here in person.
Hi, this is Jason Seaton. I've watched activities in the neighborhood, and they're starting to grow and starting to do broader things around it. And I kind of, on Easter and last Halloween, I thought it might be nice if we get to a place where for our neighborhood, I have nothing against trick or treating through the neighborhood, but it might be something that we could do to host an event in the park, in Poplar Grove Park, and have, the younger kids, not a trunk or treat, but maybe tents or walking around the park, they can do something. And also maybe an Easter egg thing at Easter in the park, and just promote coming to our parks, whether it doesn't have to be just Poplar Grove Park, but I think these things are hard to do. It's because it's all volunteers, and our neighborhood, it's tough to volunteer because everyone's working so hard to stay above water in their lives. But I just want to throw that out there. And if there are people who might be interested in those sort of things, I think, I see them in Riverton and I see them in Draper, and those are great community events. And why don't we do that? I think that really pulls people together.
All right, thanks, Jason.
Yeah. It's a really good opportunity to put that chair out, that living chair for the people who want to spearhead an activity.
So for those online that aren't hearing, one of the things that we've talked about just recently with our community council, I've just taken over as the new chair. One thing that we're trying to do in the council is to create standing committees in 2 senses. First, we're going to have a set of committees that we have created as a board that we want people to help out with things that we're doing. But we also, we're keeping open what we call special committees that will come and go depending on what you're interested in. So we would love to get more people involved, but it's hard to get involved with an organization when the organization is like, show up to all the meetings and do all the stuff and maybe help out, right? We want to be a little more specific to say, like, if you'd like to help, we need help here, here, and here. But let's say you don't care about any of those things that we do, but you have some other passion project that isn't on our radar at all. We are completely open to let us be a vehicle for you to get that thing done. Let's say you care about, you know, the hiking trails through the Fife Preserve or something like that. And Danny's not even in the room right now to chime up for that. But let's say that you just care about this one little thing, or you want to help, you know, create these events. We want your input. I mean, we'll create a board position for you to be able to have this as a platform to help make those things happen. Because we can only, you know, like Jason just pointed out, as a volunteer organization, we're just all doing as much as we can while still keeping our head up above water in our personal lives. And so being involved with these organizations should not stress you out too much. So we will work with whatever ability you have to give. I just had someone that's on the board recently just reach out saying, I got 3 jobs. I don't know if I can do anything really. And I was like, that's cool. Do what you can. And we'll work with the time that you have. But I love that idea of having events like that. Performances in the Park, which we'd mentioned earlier, is an event that I'm throwing together, just me. So like, basically I just reached out to all the people I know, but I'm the type of person that likes to do that. The council then got me involved, so it might become a little bit more of a council event now that I'm the chair of this as well. But for those that are here, or if you know other people, we want to get as many people as involved so that you don't have to do too much to have a big impact on the neighborhood. So basically that's just, we're saying there's an open door. info@poplargroveslc.org. slc.org is just our website. We're going to try to do a little more as the months go on in showing you what our needs are to see how you'd like to participate. Or maybe you're too busy, but you got a spouse or a friend or a neighbor that might be interested in this. Spread the word, because there's so many in our neighborhood. The group here online and in person is not representative of our neighborhood, right? It was such a small sliver of that. The very best looking, best acting. You guys just look great here on online as well. No, but we want to get more people involved. And so I think that one of the ways we'll do that is by creating more of these events, but we do need more help with that. I think that's great. Any other comments? A couple in the chat. Let's see here. Oh, so to fill in the question of Linda asked the question of any chance of getting pickleball courts at the park at Emory and Indiana. And so the answer to that is yes. We've put on our recent council meetings onto YouTube. You can find it there. And we had a presentation that it was also another CIP grant that we received a couple years back to redo the courts, the tennis courts, which are going to be really cool murals involved in there as well. But it's basically going to be 1 tennis court and 2 pickleball courts on the same spot there. So there's going to be some adjustments that are going on there. There was a question from Zach. Do you want me to read it out loud, or do you want to unmute Zach? Read it out loud. I was just going to give him a chance to talk in, but I can read it out. I can be your voice, Zach. Zach said, it sounds like it would be nice to hear from law enforcement on ways that community members can aid initializing police investigations. I hear there's a lack of funding, but there seems to be a motivated citizen base that can be tapped as a resource. Can they speak to safe citizen solutions for gathering evidence, perhaps video footage of traffic in and out of suspected house numbers with plate numbers to reference against other crimes? So that's feedback for Detective Oliver, who's outside. We'll chat with him as well. Don't have an answer for that now, but that's a good concern. Thanks for sharing that. And then there's just other suggestions about how to engage businesses in trying to create some of these events and doing things like that. So we appreciate that. Awesome. Well, everybody, I appreciate your time coming out. I'm one to not drag it out if we don't have to. So thank you again for attending this community council meeting. Feel free to reach out if there's any concerns that weren't brought up here. We'll do our best to touch on them and move forward. So thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.